If your parent has started needing more help than they used to, and you're the one carrying it alone, exhausted and quietly wondering if you're doing all of this right, I want to walk you through something today the scripture actually speaks to directly. Because caregiving guilt is one of the heaviest things I hear about in ministry, and almost nobody names it out loud. So today I want to walk you through what it actually looks like to honor your parents well without losing yourself in the process. I'm Reverend Paul, and I've spent over 20 years in ministry sitting with families through exactly this season. If you're finding this helpful, go ahead and tap that like button. It helps more people find this when they need it. So let's get into it. Let's start with where this command actually comes from, because I think a lot of us have absorbed a version of honor your parents that's heavier than what Scripture actually says. In Exodus chapter 20, verse 12, it says, "Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee." That's one of the 10 commandments. It's foundational, not optional. But notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say sacrifice your own health. It doesn't say never say no. It says honor them, and honor's a posture of respect and care. It's not the same thing as unlimited self-erasure. There's a second passage that speaks directly to caregiving responsibility, and it's one I think about often with families in this exact situation. In 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 8, Paul writes, "But if any provide not for his own, and specially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith, and is worse than any infidel." That's a strong verse. Scripture takes family responsibility seriously. Caring for an aging parent isn't an inconvenience to tolerate. It's actually treated here as a marker of genuine faith. I want you to hear that, because if you've been feeling like caregiving is just an exhausting obligation, Scripture frames it as something with real weight and real meaning. Drop a comment below with where you're at in this season. I read every comment, and I may make a follow-up video on the most common questions. But here's where I want to be honest with you, because this is the part that gets missed constantly. Honoring your parents and providing for them does not mean you have no limits. It does not mean saying yes to every request, being available every hour, or letting caregiving consume your marriage, your health, or even your own family. I've watched people white-knuckle their way through years of caregiving because they believed any boundary was a betrayal of this command. But it's not. Caregiving without any limits doesn't actually serve your parents well either. It just means you're eventually going to burn out and you have nothing left to give. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 says, "And let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not." The word weary is doing real work there. Scripture assumes this kind of care can genuinely wear you down, and it's telling you not to quit. But it's not telling you to run yourself into the ground doing it. Sustainable care requires boundaries. That's not opposed to honoring your parents. It's what makes honoring them possible for the long haul, instead of collapsing 3 months in. So what does this actually look like in practice? A few things I'd encourage you to sit with. First, get honest about what you can realistically carry alone and where you need to bring in other people, siblings, other family members, professional caregivers, your church community. Providing for your parent doesn't mean you personally have to do every single task yourself. It means making sure they're cared for. And sometimes that means coordinating care rather than being the only hands doing it. Second, protect specific boundaries around your own health, your own marriage, and your own children if you have them. A visit that leaves you completely depleted every single time is worth restructuring. Shorter, more sustainable, rather than long and draining, until you can't do it anymore at all. Third, let go of guilt that isn't actually about wrongdoing. There's a real difference between guilt over genuinely neglecting your parent and guilt over simply having limits as a human being. Only one of those is something Scripture is actually asking you to examine. Quick break. If you want a simple way to walk through your specific caregiving situation, check the link in the description below for a resource I put together on exactly this. Here's what I want you to walk away with today. Honoring your parents is real. It's commanded, and it matters. And so is your own sustainability, your health, your marriage, your capacity to actually show up for the long season this might be, instead of the short one. Those two things aren't in conflict. Scripture holds both of them at once. And so can you. If any part of this is touching close to home right now, I'd genuinely rather you reach out to a pastor, a counselor, or a trusted friend than carry this completely alone. And if you're in a season where family conflict keeps resurfacing on top of everything else you're carrying, I made a video breaking down exactly why that happens and what to do about it. You'll find it linked right here and in the description. Thank you, and God bless.